In this video, I'm going to walk you through the steps of how I made this adjustable canvas bag strap. For the hardware, you're going to need your swivel clasps, and then to make the strap adjustable, you'll need the buckle slider. Now, your fabric, you'll need to make that around 60 inches in length, and the width will be depending on the size of your hoop. I've had swivel clasps that I've bought before, and just like these ones here, where it was advertised as 1 inch wide, it was actually a little fraction smaller. So I'm going to cut my fabric so that it fits the size of here. So you'll need to measure the distance between here and here, and then times that by 4, and that's the width you need to use to cut your fabric. So for this one, it's just under an inch. This was 3/4 of an inch, therefore I cut my strip 3 inches wide. A lot of these are 1 inch wide, so therefore you'd cut that 4 inches wide. For the fabric, I'm going to be using canvas. That doesn't require any interfacing or wadding. If you're going to be using cotton fabric, then make sure you put something on the back of it to give it more strength. So add some interfacing or wadding, make it the same length as your fabric. I like canvas, it's really strong and sturdy, and this is waterproof as well, so it's a really good fabric to use for the bag strap. I'm going to use a scrap piece of fabric and show you that you don't necessarily have to have one continuous length, because sometimes it's not easy to have like a 60-inch length piece of fabric. So I'm going to use this and cut that down into 2 smaller strips, and then connect those together and then sew into 1 long strip. Cut that into 2 strips. I've done 31 inches on both, gives me a little bit of room to trim down if I need to. And I'm just going to join those together now so that I've got 1 continuous strip. And to do that, I've placed the good sides of the fabric together. Now this is obviously the same on both sides, but I've got my pencil markings where I cut my fabric out, always mark it with pencil. So I use that as a guide, for that is my bad side and the good side is the clean side. So if you've got a pattern fabric, then obviously you put your 2 pattern sides facing. So to join them, I'm just going to place it together like this, and I've just drawn a line there of where I'm going to sew those together, which is essentially going from this corner here up to here, and then I can then fold my strip back, and then that will be joined on a diagonal line. I'm going to just back stitch at the start, and then all the way along that line. And then back stitch when you get to the other side. So now your 2 panels are joined. So I'm just going to trim away. I'm going to use my pinking shears for this fabric. It frays very easily. It's a Remo canvas. So I like to use these scissors to stop the fray. But if you've got fabric that doesn't fray too badly, then just use your regular scissors. So now that's been cut, you can just press that. I'm just going to press that seam flat with the iron. And now I need to fold the strip. I'm going to fold this end in first so that I don't have a raw edge. I'm going to give that a quick press with the iron. Now I'm going to fold that in half. This material does like to fray, so it's very good for the strap, but it's a bit fiddly to work with. I would recommend, if you're a beginner, just to use maybe some cotton fabric and put some wadding on the back or interfacing to strengthen it. So I'm just going to iron that all the way down. Folding it in half and then ironing that crease in the middle. I just want to do the same on that end as well. Don't worry about these pencil marks. This is an old piece of fabric that I'm using, and this is all on the inside, so you won't see it. It's a good way to use up your scrap fabric, make a nice handbag strap. Okay, now you want to repeat that by folding again now into that center line, and then just press that all the way down. All the way to the end. Okay, once that's ironed, you want to turn that around and then do the same. Folding that in again to the center and then pressing all the way down with the iron, all the way to the end of that strip. Okay, so now you should have a fold in the center and then the two folds that go into the center. And of course this bit here. So now you can just bring those folds together and then fold that over like this. Now you want to work your way all the way down the fabric again with the iron, just pressing that in place and then putting clips in place to hold it so that you can then take that to the sewing machine and sew the strip together. Okay, so that's all been pressed in place and now it's all clipped, so all the way down the strap, really long strap. Now I'm going to stitch this together now, so I'm going to start here with a little back stitch all the way along and then pivot and then go all the way down the strap, all the way down till I reach the other end. And then when I reach the other end, I'm then going to pivot again and go along the top. And then I'm going to go all the way down the other side until I reach back where I started. Now this is a really good time to check your bobbin, make sure you got enough thread because you don't want to run out. It's a very long piece of fabric that you're sewing, continuous stitch. Just to recap, starting from here, sewing along. So where the seam, where this is open, I want to sew that bit first. So along the top and then down that open seam here. Now I like to start by lowering my needle into the fabric first. Start it by hand and then give it that back stitch. And then all the way to the end. Now I'm just leaving a tiny gap between the thread and the edge of the fabric, not even 1/4 of an inch. It's very thin strap. You can get a feel for where you want to sew your line. I'm just using the edge of this presser foot here and the needle as my guide for the width that I'm going to use. Now I'm going to do this by hand because that's quite bulky on that end there and I don't want that needle to break. So just start that one by hand until I'm over the bulk. And now I can sew all the way down, just removing my clips as I go. Okay, so now I've reached the other end. I'm just going to lift up the presser foot and turn that around. Pop that back down. And then I like to just do this bit by hand because it can get a bit bulky on that end. Ooh, knock the camera there with my head. Joys of filming. So I was going to do that with I've only got a basic machine, so this is really a beginner's guide. So if you've got a fancy machine, then you don't have to worry about that. You can probably just do that on your fancy machine. So again, so now lift up the presser foot, pop it back down again. I'm going to get that started again by hand to go over that bulk. And now I'm going to sew all the way down on the other side. I'm getting to the other side, so I just want to end where I started. I'm going to do that again with my hands. And then I'm going to back stitch. So there, nice long strap, all sewn together. It's so much fun doing that, and you're literally just sewing in one straight line. So now I'm going to take these threads and I'm going to, let me get them to the same length. I'm just going to use this really nice wide eye needle and just pop those two threads that are on one side into that needle, and then I'm going to just poke it through and come out this bit here. And then I'm going to do the same on the other side. Now my threads are not on the outside, they're coming out of this bit here, and I'm just going to trim away that thread and it's all nice and neat and tidy. Okay, now for the fun part, adding your hardware to your strap. So first of all, check your strap. One side will be neater than the other. So if you see here, you can kind of see two edges of the fabric there. When I turn that the other side, it's much neater. That'll be the side that's facing out when you've got that bag strap on. Okay, now we're going to attach the buckle slider. I want this bar to be facing up, where the two metal sides are sort of folded in on each other. That's the back of the slider. So you want the front of the slider facing up, and then you want to take your good side of your strap, have that facing up, and then place your strap through the slot. Move your bar down and then turn that over and then go through the other slot and then pull that down. And now you can fold your strap over. I normally leave about 1 inch there. Put 2 clips in place. And at the sewing machine, I'm going to sew a line here, back and forth. And then I'm going to pivot, go all the way down, and then pivot again, across here, back and forth, pivot, and then back up again. I'll just place my presser foot down just so it's not touching this metal buckle. And I'm going to just place my needle down into the strap, just pretty much in line with where that stitch line is. And I'm gonna go straight across and then all the way back and then straight across again. And then back. And then all the way down again. I'm gonna lift my presser foot, turn it around. And then you'll see that the presser foot is sitting on that buckle. I just like to do this bit by hand just in case the needle breaks. If you've got a much more expensive machine, then you might be okay, but I'm just going to go with doing that by hand from past experience. Now I'm going to go all the way down. So I can sort of feel where that strap is folded over. So I'm going to now pivot again. And I'm going to sew again in a straight line and then go back and then a straight line again. I'm going to start that by hand because of bulk there. And then pivot again and then go all the way back to where you started in a straight line. And then back stitch. So now your buckle is attached. I like to just thread my loose threads back into the strap and out the sides, and then I'll trim away my threads from the side rather than coming out the front of the strap. So that's the buckle end. And now this is where you want to attach the first swivel clasp. So keeping it good side up, keeping your strap all good side up. Find the other end. And now slide into the hoop and then pull that all the way down. So it's out of the way. So now you've got your buckle here and your swivel clasp is about here. Now you want to find the other end of your strap, and then we're going to put that through the buckle and then loop that over and then come back through the top. And then pull that. That's what makes your strap adjustable. So now you should have your clasp sitting neatly inside here. And now all you need to do is attach the other swivel clasp to the other end. So we're going to pop that in. Fold that over, and just like we did with the buckle slider, we're going to sew along here, straight line back and forth, pivot, go all the way down, pivot again, back and forth, pivot again and come all the way back up. So leaving yourself about just over an inch. So you can put clips in place if that helps. Just going to place that under the presser foot and just making sure that my presser foot is away from that metal hoop. Now I'm going to lower my needle into the fabric, so I'm using that stitch line here as a guide of where I'm going to place my needle, and then I'm going to go all the way to the other side and then back, and then all the way back to this side again. And then back and then forward again. And now pivot and sew all the way down to about here. Remember, you've got your fold here, so you want to essentially, you're just attaching that fold to the front of this strap. So I'm going to sew to about here. And then I'm going to pivot again. And if you've got bulk and your presser foot is sort of not flat, I always like to just go by hand really slowly. If you've got speed control on your machine, then you don't need to do that, but I don't, so I'm just going to use the dial on the side to do that. And now I know that my presser foot is nice and flat again, so I'm going to go all the way to the other side of this stitch line, then back and then forward again. And just turn that around, and then you want to come all the way back up to where you started. And then back stitch. Now, if you've got a matching colour thread, that's going to look much neater, but I've used this thread so that you can see clearly what I'm doing here. And that's it, the bag strap is complete. You've got your slider so you can adjust your strap. And then clip your swivel clasps onto your bag and you're good to go. Okay, so as you can see, that was really easy. It is easy, it's easier than it looks. And you can use up your scrap fabrics to do this. So you could have a mixture of different fabrics and make a really one-off bespoke bag strap, and it will look really cool. Green isn't normally my colour, but I think this would be quite good for a Christmas themed bag. So I'm going to keep this and make myself a Christmas bag later on this year. Right, if you made it to the end, thank you so much for watching. And if you've got any comments, please let me know.